What can Mittelstand learn from enterprises? What enterprises can learn from Mittelstand? Today, we will talk about learning exchanges between Mittelstand and enterprises. Hi, my name is Jan, and I am the founder of 360 Digital Transformation. With this channel, my aim is to help Mittelstand to understand how can they use digitalization to improve their daily business. Today, I have Clemens Böhmer with me. Not only he's a triathlete, but also he is responsible of digital transformation in one of the biggest companies in Austria. He also helps with his company, der Digitalisierer, to Austrian Mittelstand companies to overcome their digitalization challenges, especially when it comes to digital sales and marketing. Without any further ado. Hello, Clemens. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Chen. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Can you please introduce yourself and also der Digitalisierer?
Sure. So I learned that you have more a technical background, so I'm more from the business side, right? And I think my whole business life was related to working on the border between business value, and the technical side. That's, I think, through my whole life, my storyline. I started as a management consultant. I was there like consulting all kinds of industries, automotive, financial services, and at the end, mainly telecom business. At the end of that, I found out it's interesting to get the big picture, to be very structured, but just to produce PowerPoint slides, to be quite direct, it was boring, right? So I wanted to take more responsibility. I shifted to telecom business. I'm now also currently working at the Austrian telecom incumbent. Here, the main story is digitalization, right? Doing all this kind of transformation projects. I had the luck to work in really like in all value chain elements, starting from product development, innovation, to digitalizing the marketing part, the sales part, like B2B sales part. But currently working on the digitalization of the service, customer service experience. And here it's always about understanding how you can use technology, data, in order to improve the customer experience, right? And while doing this, I found out that actually this is a huge potential. And similar like your passion for the Mittelstand, I have the passion for the Austrian Mittelstand, right? I see so many opportunities. I see so many complex topics around this. I want to help the Mittelstand, the Austrian Mittelstand, to translate this, to help them hands-on how they can leverage the technology. And that's why I founded my own small company as a side business to help business owners, help marketing responsible persons to really leverage these opportunities as a their Digitalisierer, right? Which simplifies like being a sparring partner for them, discussing, giving them idea, translating them what they can do, that they can really get leveraging the potential of digitalization.
Thank you for the introduction. I'm quite excited to learn from you because you have a unique combination of the experience from the enterprise. And if I am not mistaken, A1 is the biggest telecommunication provider like Deutsche Telekom in Germany, in
Right.
Austria. But also you have seen the potential of the Mittelstand, because the challenges are, I believe, the same in Germany and in Austria as well. So you see this potential, and your combination is how can I take my learnings from enterprises and also apply them to Mittelstand. Do I understand you correctly?
That's exactly the point. And the good story is it's actually a circular flow, right? Because we have, when you work in an enterprise, you have a lot of resources to really try out the latest technologies, fancy things like machine learning and stuff like that with huge teams. At the same time, you learn the hurdles and the difficulties. And at the same time, you learn where you really can do the quick wins and the small steps, right? And this you can apply to the Mittelstand. And in the Mittelstand, you actually learn how you can be much faster, much more direct, discussing in a large enterprise versus discussing with the owner of a Mittelstandsunternehmen is a completely different, right? I have especially one customer, you go there, you discuss 20 minutes and he says, go, no go, and that's it, right? You can really work and you can progress. And there are many things where I'm also my role within the enterprise. I can learn from Mittelstand how to be more direct, more fast, and really be more connected to the customer.
Yes, that's why I love Mittelstand. So very short decision-making cycles. Great to speak from all the levels in the company to people and directly convert your conversations to actions. And that's exactly why I love Mittelstand. But thank you for summarizing it very well. You actually kind of summarized my first question, but let me ask it again for the audience. How Mittelstand can learn from large corporates?
So I think, of course, there are many things which they can learn, but I think this constantly change of all the industries, doesn't matter which enterprise, right? That they are constantly trying to transform, trying to apply technology. Yeah, I think the Mittelstand should stronger observe this. Why is this happening? What is changing? And really try to understand what does it mean for themselves, right? Very often I have the impression when talking to business owners, it seems to be very far away from them, or it seems like very expensive, or it's something where, oh, it's just for enterprise, not for Mittelstand. But the reality is the other way around. I think through the whole digitalization movement, things get more accessible, more affordable, also for smaller players, right? It starts with, we discussed it initially, before the call, like the educational part. Yes, we don't have to big exams, big studies. You can access knowledge everywhere through Udemy, through LinkedIn Learning, through all this kind of means without big hurdles, right? You can, in the marketing and sales part, you can suddenly reach your target group very easily. You don't have to have these big TV advertisements or this big trade show events and stuff like that. There's smarter ways to get very specifically to the customer, and this you have, of course, all the aspects of your value chain that you can leverage this, and I think that's the big chance for the Mittelstand.
Yeah, thank you for this answer, but I would like to flip the coin and again ask, then what large corporations can learn from Mittelstand?
Right. So again, we're taking this first example with the business owner. Very often they're also like the salesman. They're very in direct contact to the customers and so on. And they're so focused on understanding, if I now do something in terms of technology, data, IT, and so on, what does it really bring to the customer? And my impression is this direct relation, this direct linking of decisions to what's the impact to the customer. This is a bit more difficult in the large enterprise, right? You have so many hierarchies, you have so many different responsibility splits among all kinds of teams spread in the organization. You sometimes lose the focus, right? So customer orientation, having focus, like clear execution plan. I think this is something where Mittelstand is much stronger, and an enterprise can learn a lot about that. Yeah.
Great. So we have many points that can actually be the title of this episode: Mittelstand and Enterprises Learning Exchange. I want to call this episode, if that's okay for you.
I think that's the perfect match, and I think for this I'm the perfect guest, because this is actually my energy, my battery, right? Because I can live in both worlds, right? I can see the green grass on both sides. I can see the challenges on both sides, and I think if this dialogue is continuing, I think it's a beneficiary for all of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciate and respect what you are doing, because it's generally either or. To see this combination of enterprise and Mittelstand is relatively rare. Therefore, thank you for being both so ambassador of this message, because I also believe that there are quite a lot of learnings that you have perfectly summarized. Both worlds can learn from each other, and there is no need for either or approach. It could be both approach or a hybrid exchange approach. Then
Exactly.
If I move on to my next question, you as der Digitalisierer also work with your clients in Mittelstand, right?
Right.
What are your use cases? How der Digitalisierer help Mittelstand? Can you give us some use cases?
Of course. So I think the most obvious use case is helping them due to the whole Corona stuff, right? How to transform the marketing and sales activities. This is like normally always the entry point, right? The situation, as we all aware of, was like suddenly, oh, I cannot reach my customer. How do I get into contact with them? I cannot have sales meetings. I mean, this is already since like 2 years,
Yeah.
but still they are occupied with this story. They're still trying to find out how this can change. And so this is very often the opener to understand how can I leverage this, right? And then you talk about the whole stories, you know, like what's my web presence, what's my LinkedIn stuff, and what I get then in the first discussions is like, you know, when you explain them what does content marketing mean, what does it mean to be organically visible, like on Google and stuff, like because the B2B, also the B2B journey is changing in terms of your B2B customers are getting the information through the internet and stuff like that. It's for them like normally content market. What should I write about? I don't have anything interesting to tell, right? And this is for me personally like and I have one example there. This where I had exactly this discussion. Like I have nothing to tell on the internet, right? And now in the meantime they have like 1,000 followers on LinkedIn, constantly posting, starting with with also like humor part and stuff. I cannot post something with which is a joke, but because I'm a business guy and so on. So this is how things are changing, and this is what excites me because again, this technology allows to be very precise, right? And also one of the targets was there. It's like I guess with the German Mittelstand, also in the Austrian Mittelstand, you have these great companies which are small, and they have the potential to expand, right? But they sometimes lack the means of how to get across the ocean to the US and to other markets. And with this means, like LinkedIn, let's call it with this name, they suddenly can access these customers, these potential customers. They can get into a dialogue without spending loads of money. So we're talking about few euros with smart content, and they can get this reach. And this is like the classical starting point of a relationship with a customer and myself.
Yeah, so that was an example about content marketing and how, yeah, let's say German-speaking Mittelstand can utilize, for example, social media channels, for example, LinkedIn. And one customer of you started from, what should I post, to 1,000 followers and getting even humorous about it. That's a great example. Can you elaborate more, if possible, other examples, like what kind of technologies you use, what kind of other digitalization use cases you have? So just let me tell you, Clemens, this is my favorite part of the episode. You talk about your clients. So
yes.
please feel free.
And another example is which is more you know, this is the soft part, right? This way of, I would call it way of working, which relates to the agile world. This is again one example where I can link it perfectly in my role as employee with the incumbent, with the local incumbent A1. We talked about it. My role is a triathlete, right? A triathlete coming from the agile world, where you have product owners, agile masters, which are for the enterprises a new thing. How to understand how agile decisions are made, how does it impact the company, and I'm having the same discussions, translating these structures, this way of working to the Mittelstand, right? But the main lever here is for the enterprise very often is it's a huge company. How can we be more flexible in adapting to this complex world out there, this VUCA world, right? You know, you're familiar with that one, for sure the audience as well. If not, Google it. I think it's a good term. And it's very often because it's so huge, right? With the Mittelstand, I think it's a different situation. It's not because it's too huge. I think you can quickly communicate across the organization. Here, I see more the story about how can you change this business understanding, how decisions are made. You know, you have more this traditional organization, this where owner is like the boss, and everybody have huge respect, and it's hard to make errors and stuff like that. And here, discussions are starting, and how can I really leverage this? How can I induce this this passion-driven organization where employees come to the company and they do it because they believe they can change something, they can improve something. So when I talk to customers, I very often have this, or I hear this complaining like, my employees, you know, I don't get it. I'm working so hard and I have this big vision and we could do all this kind of stuff. But when I ask them to do something after, I don't know, Friday afternoon, nobody's moving. I don't get it. Why are they not motivated, right? They get so much money, and they get a salary increase, and they get Christmas party and everything, right? And this is one part of the story, which is more on, I think, on the soft side, is this: how does leadership change also for the Mittelstand? How does responsibility, but also purpose, change for the Mittelstand? And to be honest, this is for me a very difficult topic. I'm not there yet really to say this is the solution, but I'm happy that I have customers, I have contact persons who start to think about there's something needs to change. And I truly believe that this is also one of the big topics which will impact the Mittelstand. And I think there are enough examples out there of Mittelstands who are already applying this.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And Corona was a catalyzer or an accelerator in that situation, because I am sure that in 2019, if I go to any German Mittelstand or any German company, let's not exclude enterprises, and say, I want to work from Mexico or Sweden, they was, let's make meetings online. But right now,
right, yeah,
the perception changed for good, because as you said, taking your James Bond back and going to the customer just for a half an hour sales conversation, you drive 200 kilometers there and back. That doesn't make sense. And
that's crazy.
And right now we don't need to convince. Right now, Corona did the convincing for us. But thank you for another example. Yeah.
And adding there, and this is something, but many learned this already, previously not believing that you can buy companies via video conference, right? And we have all these kinds of examples out there, right? Previously you had due diligence, you didn't move there, you have all these kind of activities, right? And in the meantime, there were deals made where companies were sold and bought just via video call like this one, right? Which is completely crazy. But I think we all learned this, and to apply this constantly to all aspects of our daily work, I think this will help. Yeah.
That's a great example. We were discussing remote work. Now mergers and acquisitions are being made pure online, and that's possible. I also figured out that people learn to trust to their employees, and employees to their employers, right? So this is a bi-directional trust, and people do complete their tasks when given responsibility and freedom mainly. And that's also what makes things easier right now, and Corona made that possible. But building upon that, how does that Digitalisierer had Mittelstand? So I am digging into examples, and how do you help? Because I think this is the best way to learn for the audience, hearing the exact use cases. And yes, we have heard about marketing, we have heard about strategic soft approaches like digital purpose you mentioned. Are there any technical examples or any other examples that you could give?
Sure. I think one of my favorite topics, of course, is everything related to product innovation, right? Really like to change the core of the company, like developing new business models and so on. And here, what I observe is, and again, talking about this loop, right? Learning enterprise, learning for the Mittelstand, and the other way around. On the enterprise side, I had the opportunity to initiate, like a couple of years ago, like one of the first corporate startup hubs, right? So like, how can startups work together with enterprises, which was on the first step, of course, previously, like, like classical PR activity, like you can say, oh, I'm so innovative, I'm supporting startups, right? In the second stage, it was more like related to cultural aspects, mixing startup culture with corporate culture. I remember an event like that. There was, you need to imagine this huge corporate office where you have this fancy big room for conferences and stuff like that, and everybody wearing ties and suits. And suddenly some startup guys were coming in, with t-shirts and trousers and stuff. Like, everyone was like, what's happening here, right? And it was like this, getting this really physically, this culture of startups, like, shit, what happens? I don't care. I just want to rule the world, right? Get it introduced into the corporate world. This was like the second effect. And then, of course, the third effect was like really learning how you can generate business results. Suddenly the startups which we were cooperating, this was not in my time again, but later then from my colleague was doing this, then really getting new funding rounds, new deals, and there was really business value developing, right? And I think the same journey, the same steps, I think are necessary for the Mittelstand to open up, to understand this startup world. So I'm discussing with owners how to open up, and one of the big hurdles here is already like this understanding about confidentiality. What's my core? That's my business as a Mittelstand. I cannot talk about it because this makes me strong. And again, here to find out how to move forward, right? To open up a little bit, to allow this kind of innovation, to allow this exchange is also one field of activity which is quite interesting. I think very difficult because there's not this one solution, right? But it's, again, I think it's the same like in the enterprise where you had this PR. I'm sexy. I'm working with startups. Right? Ticked off. Also using it for employer branding. Maybe that's also could be one argument. Then the second topic, really this culture effect, which is mixing there, this concept of an MVP, the MVP concept is minimum viable product, which is, I think, a completely way of doing things, which I think every owner, every businessman should be, traditional business should understand this concept. That's one aspect. Or what I call, as an example, is this all-in mindset, right? I've heard one podcast from the Gorillas founder, this B2C startup, which is delivering, the food within 50 minutes, yeah. As a classical businessman with a business case in your head and the costs and stuff, it's crazy. Why do you do this, right? But when you listen to them in terms of, we have nothing to lose, right? We put everything, all the resources, all our passion, all our hearts into executing this business, you suddenly have market and business dynamics which are completely different, right? Changing the whole game. And this is, you don't see this within a corporate, you don't see this within a Mittelstand when you just do your 9-to-5 job, or even if you are stressed out and do it from 7 to 7 in the evening, right? But the thing is, how do you get this all-in mindset into your company? And that's where I'm also working on the Mittelstand on this one, to induce a little bit of this startup culture. I truly believe, maybe as the last thing, I truly believe that the majority of innovation is coming through startups, right? And the startup ecosystem, I mean, Berlin, we don't need to talk about. I think it's huge, right? But it's also developing in Austria in the meantime, and you have all kinds of different matchmaking organizations to help here to understand these two completely different worlds.
I really loved about all-in mindset and your example about Gorillas. They are also from Berlin, no, needless to say. But exactly. If I'm not mistaken, Berlin startups raised 11 billion euros in 2021. So this is something, and glad to hear that that's also growing in Austria. And I believe there is huge potential there as well because of the geographical location, which is exactly the center of continental Europe, right? So you have more access to talent, I believe. But what I wanted to say is this all-in mindset, and how can I bring this all-in mindset from the startups to Mittelstand? And maybe, as you have mentioned, there could be hubs combining Mittelstand and startups. There is new Mittelstand in Germany, but maybe there are other incentives in Austria as well. But would be great topic to, again, today we talked about Mittelstand and enterprises learning exchange, but we could also talk about Mittelstand and startup learning exchange, because on the other side of the coin, Mittelstand has the know-how. And this know-how is generally family-led companies of 50, 60, 70 years of generation. Therefore, there is a big know-how in Mittelstand. And startups can also benefit from that. So there is, again, a mutual benefit I see. And thank you for bringing this all-in mindset. I really take this as a highlight of one of the highlights of our conversation. But my last question to you is, what's your top suggestion for Mittelstand owners or managers to apply right away?
My top suggestion, this is like my key message out there for them, is like, you need to accept the fact that your company will become a software company, right? What I mean by that, and it's also the CEO of Microsoft is telling that, maybe because of a business need, but I truly believe that when you look at what's happening, right? all the new products, all the new stuff is very highly defined by how the software looks like, how the software feels for the customer. What do I mean? Like concrete example, you just need to look at the automotive industry. I mean, Tesla is of course the most quoted company there. Talk to a friend like who just explained to me, like very excited, hey, I just ordered my heating for the seat, right, on my app, right, and I switched it on, and I paid, I don't know, 200, I don't know how much you pay euros for that, and now it's working, right? So no mechanical parts changing. It's still a car. Like I think what's out there more traditional like a car, right? And now you can order via app, you can upgrade, you can do the feature. It's a software story, right? You need to be able to develop a software. It's a completely different thing, you know, release cycles, the culture and stuff like that, the error, how you handle with errors and bug fixing and all this kind of stuff. And my true belief is, and if you really get used to that and look at all these industries, this is happening everywhere. This is happening everywhere, that from a customer perspective, and it's always the customer in the core, he or she will experience the product, how it's defined by software, right? And I think the only question mark is that how long will it take your industry to be there? So that's the key message. Get acquainted with this fact and start wondering when you have free time, when you have spare time, we talked about sports, right? When you're running, how can my company start on this journey to get used how to work with software? And again, here on my enterprise time, I learned this extremely, you know, in enterprise, but I think also in Mittelstand, it's like IT companies are some sort of alien stuff, right? You order them, maybe you negotiate with them, but then you order one piece and that's it. But with software, it's a continuous journey and continuous involvement. And I think that's my biggest advice. Start this journey today to question yourself, what can you do to do this? Like the CEO of VW is constantly posting this on LinkedIn, for example, how they incorporate this culture, because it will take years. And it's good to start now.
Yes.
To ask
yes.
yourself the questions.
Thank you for the answer. But I will make an exclusion, as you are a triathlete. I will ask you one more last question. What's your top learning that you can take from sports and apply to business?
My top learning, I think, how I leverage sports in business is that, you know, you always can do better, right? You have your competition and you have your training for that, right? So at the day of the competition, try to do your best. Maybe you're first, maybe you're second, you're third, especially with triathlon, you know it's not always about winning, but I learned you're quite good triathletes. I'm not that good, but it's not about winning. It's about giving your best at the competition and then drawing your learnings, and then use the next training time, the preparations to do better in getting faster, and in terms of company, getting a better product out there. And this is nothing which does not stop, right? There's always a step to get better. There's always, you know, one repetition more. There's always one what you can push more. So this is what my true belief is. And if you just challenge yourself a little bit, you will only move it advance a little bit. If you challenge yourself a bit more, you will advance, of course, more. So this is something where I see 100% parallels in doing business and sports.
Great, I love that. Clemens, how people can find you?
LinkedIn, you know, it's when talk about B2B, LinkedIn is the only source. I think it's the best thing. It would be really great. Just connect with me on LinkedIn. I have my own corporate account, Digitalisierer. I'm still growing it from the beginning, so looking forward to get some followers to start a discussion and interaction. I think this would be the best and quickest way.
That's perfect. Clemens, thank you so much. I really enjoyed your companion and our conversation about the learnings exchange between Mittelstand and enterprises, and wish you very, very success with their Digitalisierer. I know you are starting, as you said, you are in the beginning of your journey. However, I believe that your learnings are very important and helpful, and I'm sure that you can be a big value to Mittelstand.
Great, Jan. Also some flowers to you, some virtual flowers to you. I think we talked 2-3 times, and it's impressive to see your passion for all kinds of topics. And I also wish you good luck for this one project you talked about initially with the charity stuff.
All right. So for the audience, I will explain it in another video. But thank you, because Clemens was the first one to know about this charity, but now the audience knows. That's perfect. And thank you for being here, Clemens. Have a great day.
You too, Jen. Bye-bye.